Vajranath installed the beautiful deity of Gopinath. These three deities are very important to all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Madan Mohan is the Sambandha Murti. It is through Sri Madan Mohan that we establish our relationship with Krishna. Govindaji is the Abhideya Murti. It is through worship of Lord Govindaji we actively engage in those activities based on complete attachment to the lotus feet of Krishna. And through this divine process of devotional service, at the ultimate stage of purification, we worship the Prayojana Murti, or Sri Gopinath, in whom we worship with pure unalloyed love or prema bhakti. This Gopinath Murti was lost for a long period of time. But one great devotee of the name Paramananda Bhattacharya discovered Sri Gopinathji in the earth just before the holy tree of Vamsivat on the bank of Jamuna. The worship was turned over to that great Acharya, Sri Madhu Pandita, who was an intimate, loving associate of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. It is explained that when Madhu Pandita saw the beautiful form of Gopinath, he dedicated his life, his soul, his everything to the service and pleasure of his lotus feet. It was through Madhu Pandita that a beautiful temple was built for Radha Gopinath in Vrindavan Dham. It is explained that when Jahnava Devi, the consort of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, came to Vrindavan, she met all of the devotees and was worshipped by all of them there. And she roamed through the forests of Vraja. Just when she was about to depart, she was offering her obeisances of farewell to the principal deities of Vrindavan. And alas, she came to Radha Gopinath's temple. While she was beholding the beautiful darshan of Sri Radha Gopinath, she began to think that the deity of Srimati Radha Rani is very, very small in comparison to Gopinath, that perhaps it would look more appropriate if she was taller. This thought crossed her mind, but she did not say anything to anyone. Then she observed the Shayana Darshan, and then she went to her residence to take rest. That night in her sleep, Lord Sri Gopinath appeared to her in his most beautiful and charming form, playing upon his flute, and he spoke to Jahnava Devi. He said, "What you were thinking is correct, that this form of Srimati Radha Rani in which I appeared with is very small. I order you, when you return to Gaudadesh, that you should arrange a beautiful murti of Srimati Radha Rani that will be appropriate to my size to be made." At that time, Srimati Radha Rani, standing beside Gopinath, began to speak, that whatever my beloved Gopinath is speaking is true. Know for certain, this is also my desire. So without haste, prepare another deity of Srimati Radha Rani to stand to the left of Sri Gopinathji. Upon hearing this, Jahnava Devi awoke from her sleep, and she was very, very joyful. She bid farewell to all the devotees in Vrindavan, and then she returned to Bengal. The place of her residence was a village called Karadaha, and there she summoned one very great devotee who was a sculptor. His name was Nayana, and she requested him to construct a new deity of Radharani. when Srimati Radha Rani was complete, Jahnava Devi called for many of her intimate associates. One was Parameshwar Thakur. Parameshwar Thakur was one of the closest associates of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. He is one of the 12 Gopals. In Krishna Leela, he was one of the 8 principal Sakas named Arjuna. She gave Parameshwar 700 coins and beautiful gifts of jewels and ornaments and cloth. And she told him, along with an entourage of other great devotees, to carry the deity of Srimati Radha Rani to Vrindavan. She hired a boat, and when all the devotees and Sri Radha Rani boarded on the boat, Sri Jahnava Ishwari, with folded palms, began to pray to Lord Gopinath. She prayed, please bring your Srimati Radha Rani to Vrindavan. Bring her to you very quickly and without any difficulty. As she offered this heartfelt prayer, the boat departed. Jahnava Devi wrote a letter to Srinivasa Acharya that the boat would be stopping in Navadvip for one day, and then it would proceed to Katwa. Katwa is the place where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the order of sannyas. When Srinivasa Acharya received this news, he and his associates very quickly went to Katwa. And when the boat arrived, Srinivas was there to greet Srimati Radha Rani and her servants. Along with Srinivasa Acharya was the great king Virambir, who previously was a leader of dacoits, but by the mercy of Srinivas became a pure Vaishnava. Also Sri Narottam Das Thakur, Ramchandra Kaviraj, Gokulananda, many great Mahabhagavats were there to greet Srimati Radha Rani and their devotees. When King Virambir saw the loving spirit of all the Vaishnavas dealing with one another together, his heart was overwhelmed with ecstatic joy. Parameshwar Thakur invited Srinivas upon the boat. When Srinivasa Acharya saw the beautiful form, his heart was overwhelmed with love. He offered 100 coins, and he offered beautiful ornaments and cloths. Then Parameshwar invited all of the other devotees onto the boat and presented to them the opportunity to have the beautiful darshan of Sri Radha Rani. In this way, all the Vaishnavas had a wonderful festival in Katwa and began the beautiful Sankirtan of the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Throughout the night, they chanted and they danced in the beautiful kirtan, the Mahamantra, and the songs in glorification of Lord Chaitanya and Radha Krishna. The next morning the boat departed. It arrived in Vrindavan without any difficulty. When that boat arrived in Vrindavan, all of the great devotees of Vraja were there to greet Srimati Radha Rani and their associates. With very, very grateful hearts, they were again and again thanking Jahnava Devi for making this wonderful arrangement for the pleasure of Sri Gopinath. Then there was a grand festival, a wonderful celebration, where Srimati Radha Rani was installed on the left side of Sri Gopinathji. Shortly after this, Jahnava Devi, being anxious to see her beloved Lord Sri Gopinath, she came again to Vrindavan. When she arrived in Vrindavan, she immediately rushed to the temple of Sri Sri Radha Gopinath. And there with great love, she beheld the beautiful darshan of Sri Gopinathji, standing in his threefold bending form, playing upon his flute, with Srimati Radha Rani, both on his left side as well as his right side. After offering prayers to the Lord, she offered wonderful gifts that she brought from Gaudadesh for the pleasure of the deities. Then she cooked a wonderful feast with her own loving hands for Sri Sri Radha Gopinath. After which she went to visit Sri Madan Mohan, Sri Govindaji, those deities that are the life and soul of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And it is explained later on, some years later, Jahnava Devi came back to Vrindavan and worshipped the deity. And she disappeared on the altar of Sri Gopinath. And that small-sized deity of Sri Radha Rani was then accepted to be Jahnava Devi in her original spiritual form of Ananga Manjari, the younger sister of Srimati Radha Rani. We read throughout the Gaudiya Vaishnava literatures the supreme importance of this deity, Sri Sri Radha Gopinathji. Through prayer and worship of this deity, we gradually are given the highest perfection of pure love. So let us all pray at the lotus feet of Sri Radha Gopinath, that we could all eternally aspire to be the servant of the servant of the servant. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prayed, Gopi Bharatur Pada Kamalayor Das 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 Anadas. Gopi Bharatur, Gopinath mean the same thing, the Lord of the Gopis. It was Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's eternal desire to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord of the Gopis, Sri Gopinathji. Sri Radha Gopinath ki!
You were listening to Radhanath Swami on devotionalnectar.com.